So the simple difference is milestone do not have a time frame, right? When I say time frame, it is a 0 day activity or 0 time activity, right? You are currently you are going through your MBA program, right? So it is a 2 year project. Think it as a project. You have invested some money. At the end, you need certain outcome, maybe a placement, maybe a certificate, maybe a professional recognition, right? Whatever it is your aim that you want to achieve, right? Then whatever you are going through, take this as a project. Every day you are doing certain activities, every week, every month, every 6 months there is an exam, you are completing that, right? So at the end there is a milestone, right? On the end of your end term examination, when the college says that yes, this person has completed MBA successfully, and you get a certificate, right? Your convocation ceremony, right? So that becomes your milestone, right? You have completed. So that is a end result you are getting, right? But in between, whatever you carried out day to day, week on week, month on month, so those are the tasks, right? Milestone is the end result what you are getting after completing the task, and it need not be a single milestone. That was the your final milestone. In between each semester you have a milestone, right? You completed semester successfully, you got a grade point of whatever 7, 8, 9 as it is. That becomes a milestone, right? Once your end term gets completed and you successfully passed or scored well in all those exams, that becomes a milestone, right? But for that, lot of internal assignments and term class participation happens, and then only you are reaching the milestone, right? So milestone is basically 0 day or a 0 time frame activity. Not activity is a end result, right? Task and activity, resources assigned. Milestone, there are no resources assigned because this is a end result, right? As a team, as a group of people, you completed the task which resulted in something, right? So as a person also, you completed all those internal assignment and term, and then you got that final result, right? Your MBA completion. So this is what, if sometimes there are questions whether there is a task or milestone. Ask that, is this a task or a deliverable? Is it a end result or something you are doing day on day or week on a week, right? Will this impact the final deadline, right? Because your final product or the project completion is nothing but a completion of certain milestones, right? If you take your MBA program as a project, there are maybe 4 milestones and 5 milestones, right? Your 4 major exams, end-term exams, you are able to complete that. Then in between, you have to complete your summer internships. So that might be, again, I can divide that each end term to a midterm, and in the first year midterm again end term. But without doing that, if at a high level, I can go with a 5 milestone MBA program, 4 semesters, and there is a summer internship program, right? Each milestone, if there is a delay in milestone, there might be a, not necessarily there might be a delay in your final milestone, right? Final deadline. Is this an important moment in the project that will indicate forward progress, right? Again, this is subjective, right? For you, something might be important midterm, right? But overall, if you think as a project manager, it might not be important, right? So when I say important, that depends for a project manager how big that project is, right? For a small project, let's say you kind of conduct a market research survey, right? Collecting data points might be a milestone, right? Collecting data points or completing survey or designing a questionnaire might be a milestone. But for a big project, let's say when the census happens, selecting participants, training, right? So there will be additional milestones also, right? So depending upon, so this becomes very subjective. When I say important, it differs from project to project. Does this need to be reviewed by stakeholders, right? And this is very important, right? When you go as a project manager, you need not go and talk about 100 tasks or activities, right? In a project like kind of a review meeting, nobody goes and talk about, okay, there used to be a testing activity, there it got delayed. So when we talk about those project dashboard, there basically I have 100 milestones or 50 milestones if it is a very big project. Out of that, by let's say January end, I should have completed 10 milestones. How many milestones have been completed? Because the top management will not, because if they start doing it whole year, all of their time will just get into the project review, right? There will be 100 projects to review, right? In a day, total for organization I used to handle 35 projects. If I go and talk about each of them, so it will take me a whole day, right? Talking on the task and every each one of them, right? So what we do, or we used to do, or what other project managers do, you just go with the project status, right? By this time, what are the major milestones supposed to be completed? How many of them were completed? If completed, good. Project status is good. Again, there are different parameters also. How the cost is going on. Then the quality, is there any quality issues? Then the timeline. Then budget, right? So those are the different parameters on which your project status is measured on, right? Then is this an event that impacts the project? Right, so like I said, whether if this event will have a final, will have an impact on your final outcome. At the our end goal is, we need to achieve that final end goal, your MBA degree, let's say, right? This, if I miss your one milestone, let's say first semester exam, you delayed or you could not give to due to certain personal problem, will that impact your final milestone? Maybe yes, right? So that is somewhere you have to think of in terms of milestone. Remember, whenever review meeting happens, it is all about the milestones, right? We do not go and talk about in the your team meeting. Yes, as a project manager, when you are discussing your project with the your team members, each task need to be discussed why that is getting delayed. But when you go to the higher management to report on that project, you need not discuss on the task or deliverables. You discuss on those milestones, right? Is this clear, or any doubt? Then what are the steps in your project scheduling, right? Plan project scheduling, right? So how will you create a schedule, right? For a smaller project, generally we do not have that kind of policies, but generally for bigger project, right? Think about in this way, scheduling, like depending upon the country, right? There are different working hours, right? If in India, I can say that okay, you do overtime, you work for this many hours. If there is overtime, I can pay you for that, right? In certain countries, let's say in European countries, overtime right now currently is not allowed. We cannot ask people to come on weekend, right? Then there are different labor policies, right? And that will impact your scheduling, right? So those things need to be planned. If it is a big project, you need to have a written document how you are going to schedule certain things, how you are going to you manage your schedule, right? Determine activities. Currently, I have given you a project, COVID-19 vaccination drive, right? Now your challenge is to, what are the activities under that, right? Nobody is going to tell you that. You have to find from secondary search, right? Search on internet what are the activities basically under vaccination drive, right? If let's say you are not finding directly for COVID-19, find out, because similar vaccination has happened in previous years, right? For polio, for smallpox, other vaccination drives has happened, right? Can you find the data on that, right? Nobody, you will not directly get a project plan, right? But let's say this actually you are doing, right? How will you do it? You will go to different stakeholders, health workers or doctors, those ICMR, those institute on those research, medical research, right? Talk to them. What are the things I need to take care of? Then those logistics person, let's say DHL or FedEx, right, who will transport those vaccinations. So have a meeting with them. So you have to have meeting with all the stakeholders who are going to help you to succeed in this project, right? Then talk to them what are the activities need to be taken care of, right? Determine resources. So this happens parallelly, right? So once you are deciding on the activities, parallelly you'll be saying, in this particular case, because this you are just showing a demo, right? But just imagine actually when it is happening, who will take care of the, who will overall in charge of that? Each state will have a overall in charge. Under state, each district might have a in charge. Maybe the collector or the SP might be the in charge, or maybe the whoever is the chief medical officer for that district, right? So those things need to be taken care of, because you cannot be, as a project manager or a program manager, you cannot be across all the states, all the locations. You have to delegate that task to a team lead. So state lead will be some person, some secretary, like some IS officer. Under him maybe 30 resource persons, right? All those chief medical officer of all the districts, right? So those are the resources, right? But again, it will be very detailed big plan. So what I suggested, you just assign some of the tasks, because I want to see that whether you can assign tasks, right, among yourself, right, those project group members. But actually just imagine the complexity of the work, whether that person is available, if that person is on leave, who will be the backup, right? So it is a very complex project. You have to think in detail from the beginning, right? You cannot wait and say that okay, let it start and we'll see how to schedule it, right? Determine activity durations again. So these need to be discussed with the resources, right? When you talk to the doctors, they say that no, okay, this is the time frame. Every day we have this many nurses. If again you have to do a pilot drive, right? Sometimes if you are not able to understand how much time it will take in this particular cases, just do a pilot drive. So that is kind of a role play, right? Somebody will be a nurse, some people will come and see that okay, how much time in 1 hour or within half a day, how many actual vaccination can be done. Then accordingly you can manage, okay, I have 120 crore people, out of that 20 crore are above 60 age group. Out of that, I'm assuming at least 60% will come forward for vaccination. That means around 12 crore people. These are the population across different states. So each day, how much, each district wise, how many population. Again, villages, where I should put the centers, which are the locations, schools, where should I put my, so that decision need to be taken. Then for each school or the for each location where vaccination is happening, right, who will be in charge, who are the nurses, right? So each of them need to be detailedly planned, right? So I don't want to get into that detail because it will take a lot of time, but at least to certain extent, as much as possible. Then duration, right? So once you understand that okay, in a day maximum 100 or 200 people you can vaccinate, depending upon how many nurses are available, right? Then you find the duration to complete the vaccination of 60 to above 60 age group. It might take 1 month or 2 months, right? So that is your, now once you decide that and you publish the schedule, that is something you have to abide by, right? And that is something which you are controlling. As a project manager, your own role is to make sure that you are able to complete for all the states, all the locations within the next 2 months or 3 months. Vaccination above 60 age group are completed. Determine dependencies, right? And this is where the main challenge comes and which we'll discuss today, the network diagram, right? Once we decide task, that's not all, right? Or resources we have decided. Now we have to make sure, analyze the task and see that which task should come first, then only the other task will start, right? Because let's say unless the vaccination comes from the whichever Covaxin or Covishield from the manufacturing plant, so that is my first task has to be there, right? It gets quality checked, it gets transported, transports, or maybe the DHL or FedEx or whichever company, right, took that kind of tender. So they will take this to the state headquarters, from state headquarters to the district headquarters, right? So the time need to be, each of those tasks need to be have some time duration. Only when these tasks are being completed, right, then only the second part, the like on the vaccination day, once vaccines arrive at the location, then somebody, it will be stored in the district headquarters. Then somebody from the school will go every day morning, carry the vaccine required for the day, go to the school or wherever the vaccination drive is happening. Then kind of that task will come only after vaccination reaches the district headquarters, right? So this is where the dependencies will come into picture, right? Which task will happen after other, which other task. Then analyze, right? Make sure that there are no resource overloading, right? Or there are no kind of circular relationship. You have put in that software, one task will happen after the other task, then again you have put a circular reference, right? In Excel, like it happens, right? Then monitor control. Once your scheduling is done, the project and you get a approval of it, right? So finally, once you have a timeline, you go to the, let's say for vaccination, right? Maybe the home ministry, right? You get approval, yes, this looks okay, you can proceed with the vaccination drive. This project or the program looks okay. Then you start monitoring. You need to have backup, you need to have a risk management plan. Let's say in certain locations vaccination did not reach on time, how that will be, like whether I can source from the other locations, right? Or let's say the state in charge fell ill or the nurses or the doctors are falling ill, right? What kind of backup you have, right? So you have to monitor and control for it, because as a program manager, your role is to manage that vaccination drive is completed within time, because that is something you have promised to the ministry, right? uh, so this is something, again, it is specific to MS project. You'll not find in other softwares as far as I know. Maybe in one or two softwares you can find this kind of scheduling. So how you carry out scheduling, right? But the concept is important, right? It doesn't matter whether it is part of your software or not. Some work is a fixed duration, right? Let's say there is a construction work, right? Once your roof, the day you are laying your roof, it need 21 days to, so 21 days you cannot do any work, right? That is a fixed duration work, right? It is not that if I put 100 workers, it will not take less than 21 days. Generally, if you are putting a roof, laying a roof, you leave it for 21 days to kind of concrete need to be in solid structure, right? Have a very good structure, and for next 21 days you put water on that, right? So that it absorbs water, and the heat of that material is reduced, right? So that is some tasks, some activities will be fixed duration, right? No matter what you do, it is not that if I put additional resources, money, equipment, I can reduce the duration, right? So some tasks you have to remember, it doesn't matter, right? It will take certain time, it will take fixed duration. Some tasks are fixed work, right? Total amount of effort what you have to put is same. So fixed work is duration in unit, time multiplied by number of workers, right? So what happens, if I increase my units, number of workers, duration might get reduced, because this is work, right? Let's say your for project activity, whatever I am giving, right? The amount of write up or amount of words you have to write, so that is fixed, right? If all of you are able to contribute, maybe you will be able to complete that project within less time. If only one person is doing, obviously he or she will take much more time, right? So that is the definition of fixed work, where the total effort, right, is fixed. Then depending, we can play with the duration and unit. There are certain things are fixed unit, right? Let's say certain project, you cannot divide the person, right? If I say I want a let's say that we get these visiting faculties, right? Maybe half a day is required or few hours is required, but we have to take that resource for that day or for that duration, right? I cannot say that okay, you just only come from whenever I have a requirement, I'll call you, right? So that is where the unit or the resource is fixed. In some cases, let's say whenever this IT development work happens or the consulting work happens, so there what they will say, I have this fixed unit, these many resources need to be employed, right? Accordingly your work you divide, because let's say that person which is very critical, he will say that I'm only available on Fridays, I can take only let's say these training sessions on Fridays only, right? So your overall work will get divided, duration will also get divided, right? You have to schedule your work accordingly to in terms of unit, right? So all these fixed duration unit work, what it says, which is important, right? In fixed duration, duration is important, you cannot play with the duration. Duration is the time it will take, right? In the unit, unit is fixed, unit is important, you cannot change unit. In the fixed work, work is fixed, right? The amount of effort you have to put, that is fixed. Now what you can play with is, maybe on the duration you can reduce or increase, the resources you can increase or decrease, right? So depending upon what kind of task you are doing, right? Let's say that the transportation, right? Transportation from place A to the plant A to the, like, wherever the vaccines are manufactured, to the district headquarters, that might be a fixed duration. It is not that if you put 5 trucks it will reach early, right? On an average speed, that duration is almost fixed, right? Then the number of units, the nurses or doctors available per hospital, that is fixed unit. You cannot suddenly increase number of doctors or nurses. Accordingly, you have to divide. Some doctors or nurses will say that no, we are parallelly managing the COVID work, so only will be available on morning shift, right? So accordingly, you have to you divide work and duration, because unit is fixed. If there are no problem, we have resource availability and we can play with that, then we have a fixed work, right? The effort we have to put to complete a work, right? Is this clear, or any difficulty in understanding this? So whenever you are writing down task, try to see that what kind of task is that, whether it is a fixed work, fixed unit, or fixed duration. So what are the steps in or the kind of principles of project scheduling, right? Compartmentalization, right? So basically that what we learned in the work breakdown structure, right? Because it and okay. So talking about your last class assignment, right? I think one or two groups tried to kind of do it innovatively, but again, both of you copied from each other. That's why you have got the lowest mark, though your effort was much more better than the other groups, right? I don't know which group did, but the silly mistake what you did is you have taken the total cost for two door garage is more than three door garage. Do you think that that is really possible? 7 lakhs and 10 lakh 50,000. It was other way around. Two door garage is 7 lakhs, three door garage is 10 lakh 50,000. Your effort in analyzing those numbers, dividing into different effort was good, but uh, I don't know which group did, so I'm not going to blame or take the names, but just see that like whenever, even if you are copying from others, at least try to see that what you are copying is correct or not, right? The effort wise it was good, but the silly mistake why you have lost the mark is because you have taken the price of a two door garage is more than the three door garage, and one group completely copied from other group. Like that other groups have also done. So anyway, I'm like slipping out to other direction. Compartmentalization is that what we have discussed, work breakdown structure, right? You have a particular work, you divide into levels of work, right? And see that at what level you will be able to manage it properly, right? Remember the kind of thumb rule, right? Though it is not applicable everywhere, work package is 8 hours to 80 hours, right? 1 day to kind of 10 day. uh, Thinking 8 hour work day, right? Generally we take that as a calculation, 8 hour per day. Interdependency, this is the most important and most difficult one. If I give you 10 tasks or 5 tasks, it is easy to understand, okay, which task will come before what, right? Imagine a highway construction project, or this kind of a spaceship, or let's say tunneling, like in the mountains right now, a lot of this border road organization, right? BRO, they carry out a lot of activities, but tunneling through mountains has to happen, right? The number of activities will run into 1,000 or 10,000, right? So imagine the task or complexity where you have to kind of find out. So it cannot be done manually. So you have to have that software which can analyze the data and say that, okay, these tasks are seem to come before this other task, right? Or you should have lot of experience in that area, right? Otherwise, remember, the when 10,000 activities are there, 10,000 tasks are there, which task will come before what, right? Time allocation, again, that is the biggest challenge when we discuss this like kind of techniques. We'll come to realize why it is so difficult, right? And there are a lot of kind of all those techniques what we'll discuss in the next 3 to 4 sessions. This is the major theme of scheduling, right? Because see, as a project manager, you want to complete the project as soon as possible. But think yourself as a worker, right? Think yourself as an employee who is working on that project. Somebody comes to you and say that, okay, how much time you will take to complete the project? It will never happen that you will give the real data, right? Because you know that once you give promise that, that project manager is going to come back and ask you why you didn't complete, right? So that's why you'll overestimate, you will give a inflated number, right? And accordingly what happens, gradually the project, let's say the time it should have taken 100 days, but it will reach out to like that famous quote is there, right? Work generally expands to the time available, right? Though it can be completed in 100 days, generally it gets completed on 150 days or much more than that, right? So time allocation or understanding how much time for each task, because if, as a project manager, you will not have understanding of all the activities, right? Let's say you are managing a software project, you know that coding is required, but how many lines of code, how much time it will take to debugging, how much time it will take to do different type of testing. You will not have detailed idea of that. You will have a high level idea. Okay, we are using this kind of software, this kind of platform, these kind of challenges are there, but you have to depend on the resources who are going to do the coding, right? To understand how much time it is required, right? So the task here becomes very complex or difficult. It is about the managing people, right? So it is when you talk about project manager, it is mostly about the managing people and communication. Effort validation, right? So this is somewhere you have to make sure that you have enough resources day on day, task on task, to complete those kind of whatever you have planned for, right? Like I said, on this vaccination drive, you have nurses and doctors, they fall ill. So it is not that vaccination should stop, right? You should to have a backup, right? You should have a contingency plan. Define responsibilities. This is most important. Each of your tasks should have a resources assigned. If it is resource assigned, not assigned, remove that task. As simple as that. In your project plan, whenever you are creating a project plan, each of your tasks need to be resource assigned, because if resource is not assigned, nobody is going to do that, right? Every task need to have a assigned resource who is going to complete that, right? Otherwise, again, you have to complete all of that, right? And obviously defined outcomes and defined milestone, right? So milestone is important because that is something you have to go and show to the management, right? You do not go and show the task completion, you show the milestone completion. These are the major milestones which you have completed, right? These are the principles of project scheduling, right? Any questions on this? So Gantt chart, it is basically like the linking of different, like, because remember what we discussed, tasks will be dependent on each other. Our main focus is to link them together. Which task will come after what? Then find out the project schedule, right? The total time it will take to complete the project. So in the Gantt chart, which basically started back in 1930s or 20s, right? Doesn't show interdependencies well, right? What kind of interdependency doesn't show the uncertainty of a given activity, right? Because right now we'll first discuss on the critical path method later on. So there are three techniques we are going to discuss. One is critical path method. Then there is something called PERT, PERT, program evaluation review technique. Then third is critical chain project management, right? And we'll try to understand the philosophy behind it. Though the critical path method is the most utilized, right? Program evaluation review technique little statistical, right? So generally people avoid it, but it is better in estimating the project duration in comparison to CPM. Then the critical chain path method, it is lot about managing people rather than managing project, because the remember what I was talking about. Whenever you go and ask for task duration, people will generally give a number which is inflated, right? A big number than actual requirement, right? And that is where the critical chain project management helps, right? Anyway, we will discuss that later on, just for your benefit. Those are the three techniques we go through our plan in this course. But this is the like basic, like whenever somebody gives you a project, generally what happens, we put on Excel, we just put down the task saying that which task, just highlight those tasks, right? So this is a simple Gantt chart just to have a visualization that okay, these are the tasks we need to complete, right? But generally it doesn't show the, if this project is delayed, this task is delayed, how much impact on my total project will happen, right? So those kind of calculation I cannot do through just simple Gantt chart, right? Where I just put one task after another. For that I need to have a software, or at least use logic for that, right? No need to use a software always, but at least the logic part, right? And that is something known as the task relationship, right? So your previous task will complete, then the next start will start, right? So I think all of the like kind of most of our work, right? You complete your end term of your semester second or semester third, then only your semester fourth has started, right? Something like that, right? So whatever activities you carried out or carrying out in semester four has started after completion of your task in semester three, right? Similarly for the vaccination drive, once the logistics or the transportation of the vaccination has been completed to the district headquarters, then only the vaccination drive will start, right? So that is finish to start, right? The finish date of the predecessor task, predecessor means before, the task which is just before you this task, right? Current task, determine the start date of the successor task, right? Because let's say the delay in transportation of the vaccines, this task will get delayed, the actual vaccination drive will get delayed. So this is finish to start, finish is for this, start is for this. So if this finish date is delayed, the start date will delay. Then start to start, there will be some activities which will start parallelly, right? By the time you have transported vaccinations, then the centers are being sanitized or being cleaned, tables, chairs, waiting place being arranged, right? Because it is not that the vaccination will reach, then you will start the sanitization, all those things, right? Because it might take 1 week or 10 days, right? So you have started that work, right? The health workers are going sanitizing the place, putting chairs and tables, the app on the app which will kind of schedule the vaccination, that is getting tested, right? So those two tasks might be starting together, right? Start and start means both. Here I'm just showing two, that might be several tasks, right? So whichever tasks are starting parallelly, right, together, right? The start date of all those tasks are same. Finish to finish, some tasks will be there which need to be finished at the same time, right? By the time you completed other tasks, your by the time, let's say, your training is complete, your vaccination should arrive, so that the vaccination drive should start, right? Something like that, right? Then start to finish, generally it doesn't happen in reality. It is a kind of a strange scenario where I'm telling that the start date of the predecessor task, right, determines the finish date of the successor task, right? Which is kind of a little counterintuitive, right? So what I'm asking, my previous task start date will tell me the next task finish date, right? Or determine the next task finish date. Can anybody think of any task like that, start to finish? Or I'm thinking this task, the previous task start date is determine my next task finish date. Can you think of anything? So this is something finished to start the development. Obviously, once I complete a design of a, let's say, project or a software, right, then only the development starts, right? The activity of marketing brochure preparation cannot start unless user documentation has started, right? Once you have my product prototype ready, I have carried out a market testing. Now I'm kind of preparing for my final launch, right? My user documentation and marketing brochure, because sometimes what happens, the content, the graphics remains same across user documentation and the marketing brochure, right? Let's say there is a how to use a mobile phone, or how to use this kind of new, let's say, air conditioners or something like that, right? So let's say there is a YouTube video or certain graphics, right? We generally try to use both of them in the marketing brochure and our user documentation, right? So both of them will generally start at the same time, right? Finish to finish, the broadcast of a football match cannot finish until the match is finished, right? Obviously there is, if you look into Hotstar and all those things, there can be a time delay, 5 minutes or 2 minutes. But generally, like if you're watching it real live in your cable TV or satellite dish, generally both of them will finish together. Match ended within few milliseconds. There might be a millisecond delay, but that your broadcasting will stop also, right? Then what about start to finish, right? Like I said, this is a strange relationship. Generally, we do not use that. Think about using a new software system. Let's say whichever Tableau version you have, or whichever, let's say, R or Python, Anaconda, or whichever you are using, right? So what happens? Successor, right? The next task is start using new software system, right? Predecessor is phase out the old software system. Generally, what happens once my new software system, once I am acquainted with that, right, I am started using that, then only I'll delete my, or kind of deactivate my old software system, right? Because let's say the new software system I'm not acquainted with, I do not know how to use, right, and I have deleted already my previous software system, then I will have nothing to work on, right? Generally, that's why all these softwares what you are using, right? Except MS Word and all those things we are acquainted with, so generally we update. Otherwise, if some software there are a lot of changes, what will happen? Let's say ERP system. You are using SAP ERP system. Your management decided let's jump into some new ERP system. So you will not kind of move completely from your old ERP system. You'll like keep working on that. And you will download or install your new ERP system. You'll keep working on new ERP system. Once you are acquainted that okay, I'm now fully 100% confident on new ERP system, then only like kind of removal of your old ERP system will happen, right? Deactivation of your old ERP system will happen, right? So in this case, what happens? The start date of the predecessor task, the start date of the phasing out of your old software system will happen once you are very much confident to use the new ERP system, right? Something like that. But generally, we avoid this kind of relationship because it might get into that circular kind of reference, right? And any questions on this? This is very important because once you are putting those relationships in the software, right, it will ask almost all the software tool what I mentioned, it will ask that what kind of relationship between those two tasks, right? You have to mention that. Anytime you are putting a dependency, it will ask that what kind of relationship between dependency between those two tasks or activities. So today we are going to discuss on this critical path method and why that name is called critical method or critical path will come to know. So this is the most famous critical path method where almost all the software what you will use or demo will be using or mostly based on critical path method. But there is something like I said, there is something called program evaluation review technique, because in critical path method what I'm telling, shipment or the vaccination from location A to reach location B, it will take 7 days. So I'm just giving one timeline, right? But in reality, it is never true, right? There might be a delay or it might reach early. So there might be several other outcomes, right? So there is a probability associated with each of the outcome. There is a probability it will reach within that 7 days. There is a probability it will reach within 5 days. There is a probability it will reach within 10 days, right? Each of them have different probability, right? When I try to consider assign kind of this probabilities to different outcomes, different activity durations, that becomes my program evaluation review technique. So whenever I am very confident on my task activities, I'm 100% sure that this is going to take this much time, we use critical path method. But where let's say there is an innovation project, there is some, let's say this started with US Navy for the missile project, because there is no certainty that this will succeed or fail, right? So a lot of iterations happen, right? So that is where you say that okay, what is the chance of this path, or what is the success ratio or percentage of this activity happening or this activity succeeding, right? We'll come back and discuss that next class hopefully, or next to next class, the program evaluation review technique. And last session we'll discuss on the critical chain project management. So again, like remember that these are the three important methods what we are going to cover in our scheduling: critical path method, CPM, PERT, program evaluation review technique, and critical chain project management, right? So today basically we'll focus on the critical path method, right? So there are two ways to create critical path method, and we'll be using this activity on node mostly. So let's say I have three activities, right? Three milestones. Enroll, you start enrolling in the program, attend classes, complete your assignment, then receive degree, right? So enrollment, the initial induction program and all those things took 1 month. Then class, attendance, examination, internal evaluation 2 years. Then receive degree, the convocation, right? So that is your final milestones. Once you get that, you know that you have completed your MBA program. So where, what does it activity on node means? I am representing each task or activity on the node itself, on this circle only, right? Whenever I put those numbers on the node, on the details on this circle, right? This is something known as activity on node, right? The other way to demonstrate or show on the like network diagram is to show the activities on the arrows, right? Linkage between two point, that is the arrow. This started the enrollment invite to end, the enrollment ended, right? In between you are doing that induction program, enrollment, all those things, right? So if I'm putting that activity on the arrow, right, then it becomes the activity on arrow, right? The way you represent the activities either on the node, on the circle itself, or on the arrow itself, the linking arrow, right? Generally we'll be using that activity on node, right? This is the way you represent different tasks or activities. Let's say I have this kind of for a product launch, I have this kind of activity, right? A to J, there are different description, right? Activity A is nothing but prototype model design, then purchase of material, prototype model, then production run, training activities, how to use that product, staff training, staff input on prototype models, sales training, then finally the marketing activities, right? Pre-production advertisement campaign and post redesign advertisement campaign, right? Let's say these are my few of my activities as a project manager I have to complete, right? So what other information I need to understand the like let's say what are the total days it will take, what are the information I need. So these are the activities now I have as a project manager I put, these are the activities I need to complete. Now I have to go to management and say that okay, this much time it will take, right? So how will I decide that? What are the information I need to go to the management and say that to complete this project I'll take whatever 100 days, 200 days, or 300 days. So now what I should do once I list down the activities, remember what we discussed in the first two slides. Once you decide or the list down the activities, what are the other things you have to do? Anyone? So basically you have to find out the time duration for each of those activities, right? You have to find out resources who will actually carry out those work, prototype model design engineering team. Then you discuss with engineering team how much time it will require to prototype model design, right? Similarly for each of the purchase of materials, maybe the procurement manager team, right? Procurement team. Discuss with them, okay, these are the raw material, these are the components, how much time it will take, right? So the second part is find out the resources who will carry out these activities, then how much time they will take, then find out the interdependencies, right? Because think about, unless I complete my purchase of materials, my manufacturing cannot start, right? Because once I receive the material, once I receive those components, then only the manufacturing part will start, right? So B activity need to be completed before I start C activity, right? So I have to list down those activity dependencies, right? Task dependencies. First, I have to find out how much time each of those tasks will take. Then the task dependency. If I want to build the schedule, these are the two important things. Basically, three things. Find out the resources, discuss how much time each of those activities will take, and discuss the task dependencies, right? So now what happens? I have these A to J activities. Immediate predecessor, like that, I have to create a table, right? Activity A before that, because that is the first activity, right? Nothing is there. Estimated completion time. This has to come with the discussion with the team, not a thought from the project manager. I think it will take 90 days, not like that. If activity A is the prototype model design, I am talking with the engineering team. They told me that they will take 90 days, right? So that 90 days. Then activity B is basically purchase of material. Activity B only can be done once I have the design document, because design document will say me that okay, these are the components required and how many numbers each component, how many numbers required, right? Activity B only will start when immediate predecessor A has been completed, right? So A has been completed, and how much time the activity B will take? 15 days, right? So these kind of table you have to create for any kind of project. So these are the three things. Once you list down your activities, find out resources who will kind of execute those activities, then discuss as them the how much time they will take, and the dependencies between those activities. Dependencies means like this kind of table you have to create. So in this case, activity G, activity C and F need to be completed. What is activity G? Is staff input on prototype models. C is manufacture a prototype model, and F is staff training. These two activities, you have manufactured the prototype model and training is completed, then only the input on, because once you start training on them the prototype model, they'll give their feedback, right? They'll give, the staff will give the input, right? So that's why G only will start once you have C and F completed. And how much time we are taking for G? 2 weeks, 14 days, right? So to build a schedule we need to create something like this, right? Then this is what I'll explain. So whenever we are creating a schedule, right, in a visual format, right, and there is something, there are four important parameters or the features: early start, early finish, late start, late finish. As the name suggests, for this particular task, whichever, let's say task A, what is the earliest time it can start? That is the earliest start. What is the earliest duration by which it can complete? Earliest finish. Then similarly, how much delay can happen with that task without delaying your final project, right? So that is where the definition of slack we'll discuss. But let's say first let us put this into a schedule, right? Let us try to build a schedule, right? So what information we have? We know that to complete the project we need to complete these activities. All the activities need to be completed, and for each of those activities we have this kind of estimated completion time, right? So I have to create a network diagram. So how will I create that? First I'll put A. So this is known as a forward pass, right? So start with the activity which you are very clear of, which do not have a predecessor, right? I am very sure about A. So A I'll start. B, to complete start B I need A, right? So after A I'll link a arrow to B, right? Similarly to start I, right, A is required, right? So I put I, and each of them I'm mentioning the duration it will take to complete. So this is activity on node. I'm mentioning the activity name on the duration it will take to complete the task, right? B will take 15 days, C will take 5 days, F will 25 days. So these I've already created. So now once I create this kind of network diagram with the dependency, right? Because I know for G to start, both C and F need to be completed, right? So I have put two arrows, one from C, one from F to the G activity, right? Now the challenge is I have to calculate the total duration of the project, right? Because here I cannot just sum it up and say that this is the total duration of the project. Because when I go to the management, I have to tell, to complete this project I need this many months or this many days or this many years, right? How to do that? So this is known as the forward pass. So we'll calculate the time it takes to start early start and early finish the project, right? So A is 90. So first thing is that early start for the initial task, the first task is 0, right? Put 0, then put 90, whatever duration. What does it mean? To complete the task A, it can start early, as earliest as possible on the 0th day. The day of start is 0th day, right? And it will take place because the duration is 90. Early finish will be 90 days, right? So we are not putting a date as such, February 21 or something, that no. We are just trying to calculate the number of days it will take. Because once we put a schedule, actual software, then we have to account for the holidays also. National holidays, Saturday, Sundays, emergency holidays, right? So now we are just calculating without, so that is difference, right? I'll show you that. This is only the number of days it will take to complete the project, but actual schedule will be different because actual schedule will take care of the calendar days, how much resources available, holidays, all those things will take care of. Now we are just calculating the number of days. So A activity is 90 days. So early start is 0, 90. Then because this task is 15 days, so this task only will start, early start is once this task is completed, task A is completed. That means 90, then it will take 15 days, 100, right? F is 90, 115 because this is again 25 days. I is 30 days. So it will start on 90th day and complete by 120th day, right? So next is C, right? So this is only take duration is 5 days. It will start once this activity is completed. So early start for C is 105. Then early finish is when it will complete it. It will take 5 days, right? 105, 110. Early start is 105. Early finish is 110. So what will happen for G? What will be early start date for G and early finish date? Because here there is a conflict, because it will start only when both the activities are completed. So what will be early start for G? Can you please repeat?
I think 105 after C is completed, then only you can start G.
No, both C and F need to be completed, right? Because it is linked to both of them. So G's dependency is on both the activities. So when is the earliest time when G can start? Earliest start of G.
So
So
115.
yeah. So how will you know that? Because for C it is getting completed by 110 days. For F it is getting completed by 115 days, right? You know that unless both the activities need to be completed, right? C is getting completed by 110 days, but F is getting completed by 115 days, right? So after 115 days only G can start. So that is the earliest start day for G, right? So 115, 129, it will not happen 110, 124, because yes, C is completed, because F is not completed, that's why G cannot start. This is again simple, 129, 129, because this is 20 days. This will get completed by 129 days. So it will take 129, 149, early start and early finish. Now for each of them, right? So depending upon the time duration of each of those activities is 45. So 149 plus 45, right? So now what happens? You have to find out the final date, early finish for all those activities. See, I'm not all the activities, early start, early finish has completed, right? But now what I have to find out? Early finish for my project, right? Which is the earliest date by which my project will get completed? Which one do you think?
194.
Yes, because see, these are three activities which was towards the end of my project, right? I need to complete all these three projects. These activity you will complete it by 170. This is by 177. This one by 194, right? So what does it mean? Unless I complete J, my project is not complete. So that is my earliest finish. So when I'm going by the forward pass, right, going from left side to the right side, whichever the later day, whichever the latest day, though it is name is earliest finish, remember we are taking the most later day as my earliest finish, right? So this is the, so now I know that it will take 194 days. Second thing what I have to find out is there any activity, because as a project manager also I know that there is a resource problem. If I carry out or execute all the activities at a single point of time, I do not will have any slack means, is there a some activities where if they also get delayed by few days, my project time will not get delayed? So that is my next step to find out, because I know that my project duration is now 194 days, and that is something I am going to commit to my management. But also I as a project manager, I want to understand, is there in between, out of this whatever 9 or 10 activities, there are few activities I can delay by certain days without hampering my total project duration, right? Because if I have that flexibility, I can interchange some of the resources, right? Let's say there are certain holidays or some persons put on sick leave, all those things I can take care of, right? So that is where I have to find out the late start, late finish, right? So what does it mean? How much delay I can start the project or that activity, not project, without hampering my total project duration. Total project duration is 194. So for all the activities which are at the end, that 194 will become the late finish, because that is the late finish, because I cannot delay the project. So for each of these activity, that will become my LF, late finish, right? So this is earliest finish. Then for each of them, I'll put my late finish. So see, so this orange, which is mentioned 194, 194, 194. For all those three activities, Early finish are different, 170, 174, 194. But for my project, what is my earliest finish? 194. So that 194 now will become my late finish for all the activities. E, H and J. For each of them, the late finish is 194. Then I'll subtract the time duration. Minus 45 here, 194 minus 45, 149. Similarly, 194. So this is the late start, right? So this is the time where I can late start. So see the importance of it. So for this activity E, my earliest start is 149, earliest finish is 170, late start is 173, 194. How to interpret that? So I have a slack of, if you see, 173 minus 45 days, how many? 24. 24 days. What does it mean? Or 194 by 170, same answer you will get. So this activity I can delay by 24 days without impacting my project, because total project duration is 194. I can start this task at 149, complete by 170. Still, I'll complete this project by 194. Or I can delay this activity. Let's say my resources are not available. I can give them. These resources have worked before, have done a lot of overtime. I can give them certain relaxation, certain holidays, so that I can say that, okay, take certain leave. You can start at 173 days, right? So this is where the Slack helps the project manager, right? Because this keeps a, so I can calculate how much that activities can be delayed without delaying my, because my project duration is fixed. That I'm going to commit to my management without delaying my project, right? Similarly for this, how much? 194 minus 177, how much it will happen? 6, 17. So here I can delay this project activity by 17 days. This one by, this one actually I cannot delay, because 149, 149, 0, this activity I cannot delay, right? So this is something, the definition of slack. Slack is how much time, how much delay for that activity can be allowed without hampering the total project duration, right? So late start minus early start, or late finish minus early finish. So that is the definition of slack. Everybody clear on this? Any questions or any doubt? Because your assignment is on this. So I have given you a network diagram. You have to calculate all those early start, early finish, late start, late finish, and slack. So what will happen for D? What will be the late finish and late start? So which will be the late finish and late start? This activity D, what will be the late finish time it need to complete so that it is not hampering my project? Anyone? So because I know all these activities, right? So this task is, late start is 173, late finish is 194. This is 166, 194, right? So for this activity to finish, right? Because this activity finishes, then only other activities will start, right? So when this task, for this task, what will be my late finish time, so that my project duration is not changed?
So
170.
173.
170.
170. Why 170? Okay, you have taken from here.
Sir, 149.
Devasis, you are not audible. Can you please repeat?
Sir, 149.
Yes. Can you explain why it is 149?
Sir, because J started J early starting 149, so 149, and D had to complete it by 149, so J is entered, or it work is delayed.
Okay. I think there are certain disturbances, but imagine what, or try to understand what we're trying to do here, right? D activity will get completed, right? We do not know what is the late finish date, but what is the idea? It should finish at a time so that it is not hampering my total project duration. My total project duration is 194. So now I have calculated my late start, late finish. So this task late start is 173. If it is start by 173 also, no problem. This task can start by 166 day, no problem. This task late start is 149. I cannot go beyond that. If I delay by that, my project will get delayed. So this late start will become late finish here, because if this task is delayed beyond 149, these task activities will also get delayed. Correct or not? Let's say this is not 149, let's say it start by 160, then this also will go to 160. That means 160 plus 45, my project duration will get delayed. So when you are coming by the backward pass, so initially you did a forward pass. When you are coming by the backward pass, trying to find out late start and late finish, try to take the lowest number. While going forward, try to take the highest number of days. While coming back, try to take the lowest among the late starts, right? 173, 166, 149. So we'll take 149 is my late finish, then minus 20 is 129, right? Because if I delay this task, this other task also will get delayed and my project will completely get delayed. So one way to remember this, when you are coming backward, try to take, if there are conflicts, there are multiple activities, try to take the minimum of them as your late finish, right? So 149 become the late finish for this. This is again simple because same thing, 149, 20 days, it's 129 days. So this will finish by 129 days minus 14. So we are just subtracting by the duration, that will giving us the late start date, right? So this activity, so 149 minus 30, that will become 119. So if I go by this task only, right, my activity A can be delayed by 29 days. It can start by 29 days and complete, because duration is 90, can complete by 199 days. But that is not the answer, right? Because we have to find out other way also. This activity again, 115 minus 100 minus 5, 110. Then B activity, 15 days. So 110 minus 15, 95, right? So if I take these activities and try to find out the late start and late finish, what will happen? 110, sorry, 95, that is the late start, and 5. So by, if I'm calculating by activity B, my late start and late finish for activity A will become 5 days and 95 days. If I'm calculating by activity I, my late start and late finish for activity A will become 2919 days. I have only one more task left, right? So if I'm calculating by this F activity, right, my late start will become 0 and late finish will become 90, right? Which one I should take out of these three answers? 595, 29, 119 and 090. Which should be my late start and late finish? Because if I choose any other answer, 595, 20, 199, all these durations will change. My total project duration will change from 194 days, it will become higher than 200 or something else, right? So I have to make sure that I am choosing a time without hampering my project duration, overall project duration. So my late start, late finish for activity A will become 090, right? So this is the critical path method. Then what is critical about it? So critical path is the connection of activities or the link of activities where your slack is 0. That means those activities are critical because that cannot be delayed, right? So that is the definition of critical path. So I have to find out which are the activities where slack is 0. So activity A, slack is 0. Why? Slack is because this activity cannot be delayed. So what is the slack? 0, late start minus early start, late finish minus early finish, that is 0. This activity cannot be delayed. This activity also cannot be delayed. This activity cannot be delayed. If you see, my early start is equal to late start, early finish equal to late finish. For those tasks wherever this condition is meeting, those are the tasks which cannot be delayed, which need to be completed whichever time has been allotted to them, right? Activity D similarly, 129, 129, 149, 149. Out of this, if I see, these are the activities which can be delayed. Activity E can be delayed by 24 days. Activity H can be delayed by 17 days, but activity J cannot be delayed, right? So if I ask you what is my critical path will be the path connecting the task or path connecting the activity which have 0 slack. That slack means that activity cannot be delayed. So these are my critical activities: A, 0 slack, D, 0 slack, F, G, and J. So the line connecting these activity become my critical path. As a project manager, I have to make sure that these 5 activities are not getting delayed, right? Slack time is the amount of time that activity can be delayed without delaying the project completion date, assuming no other delays are taking place in the project. You also have to track other activities. It is not that I leave other activities, because other activities, let's say, think about this activity E. What I'm telling, this activity can be delayed by 17 days, but that doesn't mean I leave it and it will start after 25 days. Then again, my whole project will get delayed. So, but this out of so just imagine here only 9 activities when there are 10,000 activities. Out of that, as a project manager, at all point of time, I cannot focus on all activities. My focus should be always on those 100 critical activities. Also, parallelly, I'll be seeing maybe a weekend review on those other activities are not delayed beyond their slack time, right? So that makes a life of a project manager easier. So critical path is the sum of the completion times for the activities on the critical path is the minimal completion time of the project. This is the minimum duration it will take to complete the project. Project cannot be completed below or the less than that duration, right? So critical path is the set of activities that have no slack. So that's why those are critical, very critical activities, because that cannot be delayed. Slack means those activities can be delayed. The critical activities with zero slack from at least one critical path in the network. A critical path is the longest path in the network because that is the time duration it will take to complete the project, right? So this becomes my critical path. Then red line which is linking all these nodes becomes my critical path. Any questions on this? So again, the like kind of there is, so what we generally discuss on the total slack, right? Late start minus early start, late finish minus early finish. That means the time available to the activity through which the activity can be delayed without delaying the total project, right? There is another concept, free slack, right? The amount of time activity can be delayed without delaying the start of any successor activity, right? I'm just looking into the next activity, right? I'm not looking into the complete project. So free slack is early start, my earliest successor minus early finish for that activity, right? So if you try to calculate for this activity, let's say G, what will be the my free slack for activity G or activity C basically? Anyone? So the formula is early start, my earliest successor. What is my earliest successor? So okay, no, here I think because I have 3 activities, right? Let's say D when I'm calculating my free slack, right? Which is my early successor? 149, 170. Anyhow, this is a critical activity. This cannot be delayed. So which is a critical activity, non-critical activity, but there are 2 paths. Here actually I don't have anything. Okay, now. If there is a link between here, I could have done. Okay, I'll show you an example in the next class. Here basically, yes, Saurabh.
Sir, this starting phase in A, sir, that's number is taken randomly as per the project or what, sir?
Starting time?
Means to say, suppose, sir, in a case of A path, there is a 90 days. So 0, 90, the 0 is a starting days. We are starting from the 0 days.
Yeah.
So that is taken randomly, sir, as per the project.
Randomly
or
means?
That is some other formula. Means to say, sir, it's taken randomly by or is taken by dividing the project employee or divided by per month, or sir, it's just we have to assume the phase of completion of project, sir.
I could not understand your question. You are talking about the 90
sir,
days.
the
Why I have
project,
taken?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The project completion date we have to assume it or what, sir?
No, it was given to you, right? You cannot assume it.
Okay, okay, sir.
It was given here, right? estimated completion time is 90, 15. These numbers were given to you.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
So this is something again like kind of there is a little controversy because a lot of books talk about your slack time or critical path activities cannot have positive slack time, right? Which is true, right? Because that is what we discussed, right? That is the meaning of critical path, right? That whichever path or whichever connection connecting all those critical activities. But there we have not taken care of what the client needs, right? Let's say in this particular case, we have calculated 194 days as our project duration, right? So that is our earliest completion time, right? That is what we are promising to our client, that will complete the project within 194 days. But let's say from the client side, before we reach out to them, they have told 200 days. You need to complete this project by 200 days. So now what happens? From the client side, the requirement is target completion days is 200 days. And we have calculated that we can complete by 194 days. So it is a good kind of situation for the project manager. So each of your activities are getting a 6-day slack, because additional that 6 days, if it is getting delayed also, your client will not get angry. Client is happy because the requirement is 200 days, right? So there will be certain situation which is rare, because most of the time client will ask for the like kind of before, right? They will have a very strict timeline. But rarely it might happen that client requirement might be higher than your estimation, right? So in that case, what will happen? Total slack will increase, right? Let's say in this case, the client requires the project need to be completed by 200 days, and you have estimated 194 days. That means each of your activity have a total slack of 6 days. That means whole project can be delayed by 6 days. Although no longer 0 the slack on the critical path will be the smallest slack, right? So even if the definition of critical path is the connection of activities or the path connecting all the activities, critical activities for which slack is 0. This slide which is talking about is there will be situation where client requirement is little flexible, right? So they are looking for target time more than what you have estimated. In that case, slack will might become positive. Slack also might become negative when client is needing, let's say rather than 194 days, client is asking 180 days or 190 days. So that means each of your activity right now have a negative slack. You do not have chance to anyhow, you do not have delay time, and for your critical activity now it has become negative. That means you have to find either more resources or some additional backup so that you are completing before time, right? So that is the two situations where the client is not going by your estimation. They have a requirement from their side. You need to complete by this targeted estimation day, right? Targeted completion day, not estimation. So this is what we are talking about. We just do not complete at 194 days and we go to management, say that it will take 194 days, because we have not taken non-working time, because it is not that every day workers are going to take 194 days means 194 working days, right? So we have to consider weekdays, holidays when we are putting that into software. So obviously software will calculate automatically, but that we need to take care of. Resource constraint, some of the resource parallelly they might not work, right? So we have to make sure that the loading, it is not that one person is working 16 hours every day, right? So that we need to take care of as a project manager. Cash flow and logistics, sometimes in the contractual work, what happens, let's say L&T or Tata projects are carrying out work, unless government provides the funding, right? You cannot pay to the subcontractors and work cannot start. So there will be a milestone that okay, payment will happen on this date, then the next work will start, right? So that cash flow and logistics also you have to take care of. Then risk of changes, right? Lot of uncertainties, risk might happen. You need to have backup for that, right? So at the end, your project schedule in the software should look like something like this, right? To account for uncertainty, a management schedule or reserve time buffer or safety buffer to be added. So 194 when we calculate and put into the calendar, apart from that also we need to have certain risk buffer, right? Because we do not know what might happen, right? Some uncertain event might happen. It might delay the project. So that is the management buffer, time buffer we need to provide for any kind of project, right? Any last question? So this is our last slide for today's discussion. Any question on this? Okay, chalo, take care, complete the assignment, and
Sir,
be
I missed
prepared for, yeah. Next class there will be a quiz, be prepared for that. Yes, go on.
Sir, attendance
Roll number
0 to 1.
0 to 1. Next one. Anyone else?
95.
95.
284, sir.
95 to 84. Okay. Anyone else? Okay.